Okay, to the morning session, morning panel B about open access. And we will now continue, after we have this heard about infrastructures, we will now continue with biological resources and scientific information. And now it's there. And I would also like to thank the organizer, yeah, great, very much for being the chair of this session today. And I hope we will have a very lively discussion. So I would already start to thank our panelists for very good presentations you will give, staying in time, and for a good debate we have afterwards, because I think it's a very important issue that we are going to address. And when I started to reflect on how should I start this session, and the first thing that came to my mind was, in fact, this picture. A closed, unlabeled can. So what does it mean? We heard this morning that in oceanography, obviously, data is very open available. In biology, I have a different feeling. And what I will express for the introduction is mostly my feeling at the moment. So I will be a bit provocative, as I'm normally always be. So the idea is, if you look at that, we will talk about marine resources. Marine resources in terms of organisms, in terms of marine genetic resources. These are topics they will address. And I would say that, in general, the access to these resources, the technology that we need to access these resources is not the big issue. We have the technology. We heard about the technological revolution this morning. I can add, in biology, we have also this technological revolution, next generation sequencing, all these things. We can address these resources. It's mostly a legal issue from my point of view as a biologist. And this is something we will address in the first panel discussions. We have to think about conventional biological diversity, Nagoya Protocol, access and benefit sharing, material transfer agreements, data transfer agreements. Who has already reflected on this in his work? Just raise your hand. Okay, one. This is nothing unusual. I just discussed this a bit with the panelists. When I was doing sampling years ago, I was never concerned about these things. I even called them annoying. These are things I don't want to touch or even working with. But it is extremely important if we think about working together, sharing data, sharing resources, we have to come across this. And especially in the Mediterranean and the Black Sea. So this picture shows you the exclusive economic zones of the countries around the Med and the Black Sea. And you will see there is no open ocean. Everything is covered by exclusive economic zones. And therefore, immediately if you take a sample and want to ship it somewhere else, it's no longer your sample. It's a sample of the country of origin. And you have to take into account CBD, Nagoya, access benefit sharing, and all these things. So all these, at least we have to think about this, and we will hear more about this today. And as a second topic is the scientific information. So what kind of scientific information do I mean? What would you think about if I talk about scientific information? I guess the first thing is the papers, or? Yes? Where is scientific information stored? Normally in papers. That's the currency, at least in biology. We sell our papers. Nicely, we already got some introduction to publishing this morning. The classical system of scholarly publishing means we have publishers, we have peer review process, we have editors, and in theory, we all want to have access to all papers that are out there. This is not so easy, because we have a lot of open access now, We have still a well-running publishing system. And at the end of the day, somebody has to pay for organizing all this. Either, you know, many journals have now implemented a hybrid model. Either you pay as an author, or the subscriber pays. I don't want to touch and stress too much on this side, because I think we can discuss this. We heard this morning already, and I fully subscribe with what has been told this morning. We are publishing too much, too fast. Every 20 seconds, a paper is being published statistically at the moment. How fast can you read a paper? You have to be faster than publishing. So, okay, not all in your domain for sure, that's clear. But still, who is going to read all these papers? And who is going to separate the good ones from the bad ones? It's an issue. Many years ago, a professor got to me, I was a diploma student, and just put 100 papers on my desk and said, please, these are papers related to your next oral exam or whatever. And I said, do I need to read all of this? He said, no, only the important ones. But he didn't tell me which one are the important. So at the end, I read them all. And I can tell you 90% were not important. Okay, we heard this morning 50% in biotechnology might be not reproducible. Yes? Think about this. Is this really good scientific praxis? Okay, we will leave this now, because I would touch another issue about open data, open access to data, which is the data that is below, that is, the papers are made out of data, hopefully. And how can we get access to this data? And there I come back to my can here. So it's closed and it's unlabeled. Information is missing. Especially in biology, I have the feeling there's strong tendency for not providing you access to what we call contextual data, metadata, data about the data. For example, if you do sequencing analysis, you should provide environmental data. It's very hard to get these data. These are issues, we get it organized, standardized, and made it publicly available in open access databases so that we all can use them. And again, we are back to access and benefit sharing, data transfer agreements, material transfer agreement. So it all comes finally together to a similar issue. I hope we will hear more about this and have an open discussion, really open discussion, how we can improve this situation. So my dream, if I can add a dream here, and I learned we can at least dream, would be something like this. Open the can, get access to the resources, and for sure have a richly and nicely labeled information, open access, organized, standardized, electronically available. We're talking about machine-machine communication. Papers are hard to read for machines. So this is now the time, again, to thank our panelists for coming.